Did you know that one woman's courage turned the tide against one of history's most brutal empires? Stay with me, and I'll reveal how Judith's unwavering faith and cunning destroyed the undefeatable Assyrian army and saved her people. By the end of this video, you'll see why her story remains a beacon of hope even today. If that sounds fascinating, give this video a like, hit subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's dive in. The Assyrian Empire, led by King Nebuchadnezzar and General Holofernes, relentlessly conquered cities, leaving destruction in their wake. Bethulia, a small but crucial town, faced annihilation. Its elders, fearful and divided, debated whether to surrender or resist, knowing both options would have dire consequences. In a quiet home, Judith prayed, burdened by her people's suffering. Though not a warrior or queen, a strong resolve formed within her. Inspired by her faith, that night, she emerged, determined to confront the darkness threatening her land. Nebuchadnezzar, a king of unmatched cruelty, waged a brutal war when neighboring nations defied him. Leading his campaign was General Holofernes, a towering figure of terror whose disciplined army destroyed everything in its path. As Assyrian forces neared Bethulia, the townspeople were consumed by fear. The town's defenses seemed weak against Holofernes' siege. Refugees from nearby villages added to the panic, further breaking the morale of Bethulia's defenders. Amid the chaos, Judith watched with a sharp eye, sensing her people's despair. She understood that their salvation required an extraordinary act, one only she could accomplish. As the elders debated surrender, Judith stood outside the council chamber, her heart burning with frustration and sorrow. The leaders, once pillars of faith, now trembled with uncertainty. "Has God abandoned us?" one elder asked, his voice heavy with despair. Judith could listen no longer. She burst into the chamber, her eyes fierce with determination. "Who are you to test the Lord?" she demanded, her voice echoing in the stone room. "Have you forgotten the miracles of old? He who delivered our ancestors will deliver us again, but only if we believe." Her words struck like lightning, rekindling a flicker of hope in some, but others remained doubtful. As the meeting disbanded, Judith retreated to her modest home, falling to her knees once more. "O Lord," she prayed, "give me the strength to do what must be done." That night, a divine resolve filled her. Judith knew her mission was clear. She would confront the enemy, not with weapons but with faith, courage, and cunning. Judith spent the night in prayer and fasting, seeking divine guidance. By dawn, she devised a bold plan to infiltrate the Assyrian camp and confront General Holofernes. To do so, she transformed herself. She discarded her widow's mourning clothes and donned fine attire, using oils, jewelry, and braided hair to enhance her beauty. This transformation was a calculated move to disarm the enemy. With her maid, she packed provisions and left the safety of Bethulia. As the gates opened, the guards were stunned to see a widow, unarmed and inexperienced, walking into danger. Despite the fear, Judith walked steadily, her heart racing with the weight of her mission. "God will deliver Israel through my hand," she told her maid. As they neared the Assyrian camp, a vast sea of tents and soldiers, Judith's resolve remained unshaken. She knew this was not just a perilous journey, but one of destiny. The Assyrian guards were taken aback by Judith and her maid, unarmed and dressed in fine clothes, confidently approaching the camp. Calmly, Judith declared she was fleeing Bethulia, which she claimed would soon fall to the Assyrians, presenting herself as a potential informant rather than an enemy. Captivated by her beauty and boldness, the guards escorted her to Holofernes' tent. As she passed through the camp, Judith observed the siege engines, the army's structure, and the patrols, gathering valuable information. When she arrived at Holofernes' tent, the general, struck by her beauty and poise, asked, "Who are you, and why do you seek me?" Judith bowed and replied, "I am a servant of the Most High, but I come to serve you. I bring knowledge that will ensure your victory over Bethulia." Holofernes, intrigued and arrogant, invited her to speak further, unaware he was already ensnared by her faith and cunning. Days passed as Judith gained Holofernes' trust, carefully choosing her words and actions. She spoke of Bethulia's weaknesses, feeding his ego while pretending to serve humbly. Every evening, she dined with him, assuring him that Bethulia's fall was inevitable, and she would help him achieve it. Holofernes, blinded by arrogance and charmed by Judith, grew more captivated with each passing day. On the fourth night, he held a lavish banquet in her honor, the air thick with laughter, spices, and wine. As Holofernes drank heavily, Judith remained focused, watching his drunkenness deepen. His movements grew sluggish, his words slurred, and Judith knew the moment had arrived. Calm and resolute, she silently prayed for strength, preparing to strike and change the fate of her people. As the feast ended and the tent emptied, silence fell over the Assyrian camp. Judith, heart racing but composed, watched Holofernes, drunken and oblivious, slouching on his couch. His arrogance blinded him to the danger. Judith, steady and resolute, silently prayed for strength. This is the moment, she thought. Holofernes called her closer, his drunken confidence evident as he spoke of Bethulia's fall. But Judith's focus remained on her mission. She moved toward him, her resolve unshaken. As he slipped into a stupor, she took his sword, its weight heavy in her hands. With one swift, decisive strike, she severed his head. The tent was silent, save for Judith's steady breathing. She wrapped his head in cloth and handed it to her maid. As dawn broke, they slipped quietly from the camp, their escape as calculated as their arrival. Judith's heart swelled with relief. God's deliverance had come through her hands. Judith and her maid arrived at the gates of Bethulia as dawn broke. The guards, shocked by her return, gasped as she revealed Holofernes' severed head. "The Lord has delivered us," she declared. Her proclamation sparked an outpouring of emotion among the townspeople. She was escorted to the council, where the elders listened in awe to her recounting of the mission. With the proof of Holofernes' death displayed before them, they praised Judith's faith and bravery. She urged them to prepare for battle, knowing the Assyrian army was now in chaos. Judith's words reignited hope and determination within Bethulia, transforming fear into courage. Word of Holofernes' death spread rapidly, throwing the Assyrian camp into disarray. Soldiers abandoned their posts, fleeing in panic. Bethulia's men, now emboldened by Judith's victory, surged out of the gates, striking down the disorganized enemy. By midday, the once feared Assyrian army was defeated. As the battlefield fell silent, the people of Bethulia erupted in celebration. Judith, standing atop the city walls, watched with quiet satisfaction. Her courage had saved her people, and her faith had proven victorious. Judith stood before the crowd, leading them in a triumphant song of praise to God. Her voice echoed through Bethulia, recounting the story of their deliverance. "The Lord has struck down the enemy by the hand of a woman," she declared. The people joined in her song, their voices filling the air with gratitude and renewed faith. Judith's hymn spread beyond Bethulia, inspiring surrounding towns to trust in God's power. Her name became a symbol of courage, her story told across Israel as a reminder of faith's strength in the face of impossible odds. The death of Holofernes marked the collapse of the Assyrian threat. Leaderless and demoralized, the army disbanded, fleeing into the wilderness. Bethulia's people reclaimed their lands, tending to fields and rebuilding what had been damaged. Across Israel, towns celebrated the defeat of the Assyrian campaign, and Judith's name was spoken with reverence. Meanwhile, King Nebuchadnezzar, upon hearing of the defeat, raged but was unable to retaliate, his empire now consumed with internal strife. Judith spent the rest of her life in peace, devoted to prayer and the service of her people. She never remarried, choosing instead to live humbly, giving her wealth to the poor and the temple. Though celebrated as a hero, she shunned personal glory, attributing her victory to God. Her story became a cornerstone of Israel's faith, a testament to the power of courage and devotion. When she passed, she was buried with great honor, her legacy enduring as a beacon of hope for generations. Pause for a moment and think. What would you do if your town's survival depended on you? Would you dare to walk unarmed into the enemy's camp like Judith did? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know how you'd handle such an impossible choice. Judith's story did not end with the liberation of Bethulia. Her actions sent ripples through Israel and beyond, inspiring defiance against oppressors. Neighboring towns that had lived in fear began to rebuild their walls and organize defenses. Emboldened by her example, her courage lit a fire among the people, and Israel found a renewed sense of unity. The tribes, often fractured and disjointed, began to work together, sharing resources and knowledge to prevent future threats. Even in distant lands, travelers carried tales of the widow who had defeated the great Assyrian general. Her story became a legend, reshaped by storytellers who painted her as larger than life. Though Judith herself had acted humbly and with faith, her legacy grew into one of heroism and divine intervention. For Israel, she was more than a hero. She was proof that God had not abandoned his people. As Judith's fame grew, she became a figure of fascination and reverence. Leaders sought her counsel. Pilgrims journeyed to Bethulia to catch a glimpse of the woman who had brought down an empire, and poets immortalized her in songs. Her image appeared in art and carvings, depicting her holding the severed head of Holofernes, a symbol of victory and divine justice. Despite the accolades, Judith remained grounded. She turned away from personal glory, retreating into a life of prayer and reflection. When asked to lead, she gently declined, reminding everyone that her actions were guided by God, not by ambition. Yet her presence alone became a source of strength, a reminder that faith could conquer even the greatest fears. While Israel celebrated its liberation, Nebuchadnezzar's empire faltered. Holofernes' death symbolized more than a military loss. It was the unraveling of Assyrian dominance. Neighboring nations, inspired by Judith's story, began to resist the king's demands. Rebellions erupted across the empire, fracturing its once unified power. Nebuchadnezzar, consumed by anger and paranoia, turned his wrath inward, alienating his allies and weakening his reign. Though he tried to suppress the story of Judith, it spread like wildfire, becoming a rallying cry for the oppressed. Within a generation, Assyria's grip on the region was broken, and Israel's victory over Holofernes was remembered as the beginning of the end for Nebuchadnezzar's tyranny. Freed from the shadow of Assyrian conquest, Bethulia flourished. The fields outside the city gates were once again vibrant with crops, and its people celebrated not just their survival, but their newfound strength. The town became a hub of trade and culture, attracting travelers who sought to witness the place where faith had triumphed. Judith, though quietly residing in her modest home, was the heart of the city's transformation. She advised its leaders, encouraged its people, and worked tirelessly to ensure that Bethulia remained a beacon of hope for all of Israel. As Judith grew older, she focused on ensuring her story would endure not as one of personal glory but as a testament to faith. She worked with scribes and priests, recounting her experiences so future generations would know that God's power could work through anyone, no matter how unlikely. These accounts, written in scrolls, became sacred texts passed from one generation to the next. Judith's insistence on humility and devotion was a recurring theme in these writings, shaping her legacy as not only a warrior but also a servant of God. As years passed, Judith remained a trusted figure in Bethulia. Her hair turned silver, but her spirit was undimmed. She continued to speak at public gatherings, offering wise counsel during moments of uncertainty. One of her final speeches was delivered in the town square, where she urged her people to remember their reliance on God, not just in times of crisis but always. "It is not our walls or our swords that protect us," she said, her voice clear and strong. "It is our faith and the righteousness with which we live our lives." When Judith's time came, she passed peacefully in her home, surrounded by friends and family. Her death was a moment of great mourning for Bethulia and beyond. The city declared a period of mourning, and people traveled from distant lands to pay their respects. Her funeral procession was attended by thousands, a testament to the deep love and respect she had earned. Judith was buried in a place of honor, her tomb marked with simple inscriptions that spoke of her faith and courage. After Judith's death, her story continued to grow, passed down through generations as a cornerstone of Israel's identity. Her deeds were recorded in sacred texts, recited in synagogues, and celebrated in festivals. Over time, her name became synonymous with courage, faith, and wisdom. Artists depicted her in tapestries and carvings, holding the sword of Holofernes as a symbol of divine justice. Her tomb became a place of pilgrimage, where people came to pray for guidance and strength. The story of Judith continued to shape the cultural and spiritual fabric of Israel and beyond. Each generation found new meaning in her courage, adapting her lessons to their struggles. In times of war, she was remembered as a warrior of faith. In moments of peace, she was honored as a symbol of humility and service. Her story crossed borders and centuries, influencing art, literature, and theology. In synagogues and churches, her tale reminded believers of the transformative power of faith. Even in distant lands, where her name was whispered as legend, the essence of her story endured. One person, armed with conviction, could change the course of history. As the years passed, monuments and carvings dedicated to Judith began appearing throughout Israel. At temple entrances, her figure was depicted holding the sword of Holofernes, a symbol of divine strength and justice. Her name was inscribed alongside the stories of great prophets and warriors. Scholars wrote her tale into sacred texts, ensuring her legacy would endure not just in Israel, but in the hearts of all who believed in the power of faith. The monuments became pilgrimage sites, drawing people from distant lands who sought strength and courage in their own struggles. Judith, the widow of Bethulia, was no longer just a historical figure. She became a legend etched into the identity of her people. Judith's story became a beacon of hope and empowerment for women across Israel. Mothers told their daughters about the widow who defied an empire, teaching them that courage and faith could overcome even the greatest obstacles. Her example gave women a voice, inspiring them to take active roles in their communities. Judith's tale reminded them that they too could be instruments of change, not bound by societal expectations, but guided by divine purpose. Over time, her name became synonymous with strength and dignity, transcending her era and inspiring women for centuries to come. Over time, Judith's story transcended oral tradition and was immortalized in art, song, and literature. Minstrels composed ballads recounting her bravery, their lyrics echoing in market squares and royal courts. Artists painted vibrant murals of her slaying Holofernes, each brushstroke capturing her courage and faith. Her story, filled with tension, drama, and triumph, inspired playwrights and poets to weave her legacy into their works. Across Israel and beyond, Judith became not just a hero of her people, but a muse for creators seeking to tell tales of defiance and redemption. In honor of Judith's victory, a festival was established in Bethulia, celebrated annually. It included reenactments of her daring mission, communal feasts, and prayers of gratitude. The festival brought people together from across the region, fostering unity and renewing faith. Children dressed as young Judiths, carrying small wooden swords, while elders recounted her story in vivid detail. It was not just a day of remembrance, but a celebration of the enduring power of faith and courage. Leaders across Israel studied Judith's actions, seeing in her an example of wise decision-making and unyielding courage. Military commanders analyzed her strategy, marveling at how she turned her enemies' strength into weakness. Judges and priests reflected on her faith, using her story to guide their governance. Judith became a silent advisor to generations of leaders who faced their own trials, reminding them that true strength comes from humility, faith, and the courage to act when others falter. As centuries passed, the story of Judith began to fade in some traditions. Her tale, though immortalized in sacred texts, was omitted from certain canons, leaving her legacy in the shadows for many. Yet, her influence persisted quietly, her name whispered in prayers, and her story shared in moments of personal faith. For those who remembered, Judith's spirit lived on as a reminder that even when the world forgets, the power of courage and faith never truly fades. Centuries later, Judith's story was rediscovered by theologians and scholars. Her tale, once forgotten by some, was revived as a symbol of divine intervention and human courage. New interpretations emerged, painting her as not just a hero of faith, but a figure of empowerment for those marginalized by society. Her legacy found its way into new traditions, ensuring her story would inspire future generations once more. In every era, Judith's story found new meaning. To the oppressed, she was a symbol of resistance. To the faithful, she was proof of divine guidance. To the fearful, she was courage incarnate. Her spirit endured through art, literature, and oral traditions, transcending borders and cultures. Wherever her story was told, it reminded listeners that courage, rooted in faith, could overcome even the darkest of circumstances. Judith's legacy is eternal. Her story, preserved through generations, continues to inspire those who seek strength in the face of adversity. She remains a symbol of faith, courage, and resilience, a reminder that even the most ordinary among us can achieve extraordinary things. As long as her story is told, Judith will live on, guiding hearts and emboldening souls across time. And there you have it, Judith's incredible journey from widow to warrior, a testament to the power of faith and courage. If her story moved you, show your support by liking this video, subscribing for more legendary tales, and sharing this story with someone who loves a true underdog triumph. Don't forget to comment below with your favorite moment of Judith's bravery. Until next time, let's keep uncovering history's untold heroes.